Hi everyone, it's Chenso from RealityArtPod, here to rank the Big Brother 27 players based on how I feel they're doing in the game as of the end of Thursday night's eviction episode in week 4. Before I dive in, I put a link to my BB27 playlist for all my recaps and rankings. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. You can also use my link to try Paramount Plus for free. This week saw Mickey stealing Riley's HOH, initial nominations of Keanu, Kelly, and Riley, Keanu winning another veto, and Jimmy backdoored, betrayed, and evicted by a vote of 9-2. Firstly, we lost Jimmy here, who last week was 4th. Coming into this week, I thought he was going to get away with playing both sides. He continues to do what he was doing last week, and while he was double dealing, he didn't have any other alliances as real or as strong as Triple Threat. So while he was a messy player, he shouldn't have been on the block this week and got so screwed over by the situation. But let's get to these rankings. As of the end of Thursday's show, we don't know who won the next HOH. Starting with last place, 13th, a new person on the bottom, which surprised even me, Catherine, who last week was 11th. Last week, she was on the wrong side of the vote, and heading into this week, here's where her investment into Riley finally pays off a little bit. She avoids being nominated initially because he was playing Knight in Shining Armor, and when Keanu wins the veto, Catherine is the obvious replacement nominee, logically, being the last remaining person who voted for Will, but she ends up not even being an option by the time of the ceremony. There's multiple parts to this. Firstly, Mickey's bond with Riley and wanting to do him a favor, but it's not just Mickey. The other players are all in a conundrum over Catherine because if they had it their way, they would get her out, but if they target Catherine, they would have to piss off Riley and deal with that, and they rightfully don't want that smoke. So I think she could be around for a while, but I can't credit her for any of this because none of this is on purpose. She doesn't talk game. She doesn't ask Riley to do any of it. In the past, I've been putting her above Riley because I feel like he'll lay down his life for her and save her with the veto, but now I see the other house guests do want her out first, and if they want it to happen, they will get it done and keep Riley over her. I had a lot more faith in her as a player when I thought she was using this man, but now she's saying she likes him. All she does is hang out with Riley, and like I said, she doesn't talk game. Remember when she described herself as a raging feminist with no interest in dating? How do we get here? There's hope for her to get better, but at this moment, I feel like she has the least win equity of anybody. She's not respected as a player. I don't believe she'll be able to do what she needs to do, like making alliances and eventually cutting Riley, and she'll never beat him in a final two. I would need to see her branch out more and make an effort. Like Catherine, at least try. In 12th, I have Kelly, who last week was 12th. After voting to evict Will, she's on the short list of potential nominees this week, but she didn't volunteer to go up, and she took the offer not to use the veto if she wasn't nominated. I'm happy that she stood her ground when Mickey was asking her to stay on the block for no reason, had she won the veto. But throughout the week, she doesn't run a very effective campaign for herself. She kind of just awaits her fate on Thursday and is letting the game happen around her. Ultimately, she survives her first vote, which is a step in the right direction. She has such a great opportunity to work with the other side of the house. She could get into such a great middle position from here. I hope she realizes that, but I bet she won't. In 11th, I have Ashley, who last week was 9th. Coming into this week, she could have been on the block during Riley's HOH, and when feeds came back, it seems like Ashley had purposefully tricked Riley, but she didn't know about the power and really just confused Riley with her natural behavior. She makes people so mad accidentally, starting with Catherine calling her out during the interrogation, but even throughout the week, she had drama with Mickey over Ashley, wanting Jimmy to stay, but I was really impressed with how Ashley confronted Mickey. Mickey was being disrespectful and dismissive. Ashley could have just walked away, but she continued to tell Mickey that her vibes were off and chip away until Mickey opened up, and then they had a decent conversation. She smoothed things over with Mickey, promising Mickey that she'd evict Jimmy, and I had to lower her one more spot after the vote debacle because that was so messy, and Mickey's gonna be so mad about it. That one vote could be so much trouble for her. In 10th, a big jump up for Keanu, who was 14th. Coming into this week after voting incorrectly in the last eviction, Keanu was still in a bad spot in the game. He was almost not nominated when Riley won HOH, which started the week off on a brief good foot. Of course, once Mickey steals the HOH, he becomes the instant target, and while he's on A side of the house, he still isn't in a very strong alliance. I did want to move him higher up because he won another veto, and he may be around for a while, but he's still annoying people. He continues to argue with Rachel, have really bad takes, and is playing, in my opinion, the worst game of everyone on the list. Everyone else could possibly survive an eviction vote, but if Keanu's on the block on a Thursday, I don't see how he's not evicted. Jimmy's eviction was great for him. Firstly, they have beef, and Keanu is getting in good with one side, but now Rachel does need to work a bit on Keanu's relationship, so he's becoming a lot less of a priority to target. In 9th, I have Will, who was 10th. After surviving the eviction, it wasn't great that he got votes against him, and when someone who voted against him won HOH, that really wasn't good. He lucked out that Mickey stole the HOH from Riley, and Will was really involved in the strategy talk this week, but I still don't feel like he's a major player. He spent a lot of time mediating Ashley and Mickey's drama. Ashley's told him that she's a lawyer, and he has a great relationship with her, but then he also joins conversations shading her, and that's not good because if he loses Ashley, his game gets way worse, and it's already not great. He's on a side of the house that's currently a mess, and the people who would protect him aren't winning competitions. In 8th, I have Mickey, who last week was 5th. Last week, I talked about what I wanted to see from her. I wanted to see her successfully use her power. I said I would be impressed. When I woke up seeing she used it successfully, I was like, okay, great. Mickey's gonna be my number one this week, finally. Firstly, I think that she was so lucky that the power worked. They plotted with Rachel to get Riley to think it was Rachel, which was a fail. Had Riley caught Mickey, she would have been screwed this week, but she does get the HOH. Okay, great. I even think her initial nominations were fine and logical. This begins her power trip. Asking the nominees not to save themselves with the veto before the veto's even played is crazy. And I can't even say she was tricked into nominating Jimmy. I'm convinced that she just doesn't like Jimmy on a personal level for whatever reason and took the opportunity to take a shot at him. I don't even care that much about betraying your ally, like whatever, I don't care. But I don't like how she and Morgan handled this. They're so fake. They use the word love all the time, saying love him to death. You don't love him to death, you hate his ass. They interrogated Jimmy the night before the veto ceremony. I would have felt really uncomfortable in his shoes. Then they weren't even paying attention and were more focused on doing their makeup while they were telling Jimmy that he was going home. And they mocked Jimmy behind his back, which at the very least is mean girl behavior. Then there's Ashley. She talks to Ashley like she's a child who she has no respect for. And she was subtly threatening Ashley that if she voted to keep Jimmy, that Ashley would basically face Mickey's wrath. She treats people so horribly, but then virtue signals to cover it up. This HOH was truly a reign of terror. With all that said, even though this was a horrible HOH, she does have social bonds. And toward the end of this week, she made progress to get closer to Ashley, Will, Ava. She may be able to do well in the game still, but in the court of public opinion, I don't know about that. At least her target went home. Had Jimmy stayed, her life would be a lot worse, and I'd have put her a lot lower, but I have her lower than Morgan because Mickey needed Jimmy more than Morgan needed Jimmy. In 7th, I have Rachel, who last week was 2nd. She offered to help Mickey win her power, and you would think this week would be great for her, but it ended up being horrible when Jimmy was nominated. She even offered to be nominated in his place. Well, she did it in code. Then she walked it back after she and the producers had a little talk in the diary room. Losing Jimmy was so bad for her game. I don't think the group will care that she voted for him to stay. It shows that she's loyal, but now she's in this ragtag group that's falling apart and unlikely to win HOH. She might end up on the block this week, and she might ask for a merciful release to get home before the jury, like she tried to do this week. But the Rachel I know isn't a quitter. The Rachel I know puts on her ugly outfit and faces adversity head on. She needs to start winning competitions. She's been training every day, waiting for her opportunity to hang on something big and phallic in the backyard. Let's give Rachel an HOH. We need it. We. In 6th, I have Ava, who last week was 1st. I really felt like her position last week was so good after she convinced Zach and Vince to change their votes. Other players have been in that top position. Last season, I had Chemo as number 1 for 1 week, but like Chemo, I don't think Ava realized how good her position actually was. Over the course of the week, the side of the house that she's on falls apart. She eggs Mickey on in nominating Jimmy, telling Mickey that nominating Jimmy is a big move when Jimmy going home is horrible for Ava's game. He's one of the best players on her side, and I'm struggling to see what she's trying to do now. It's really the lack of a clear plan that has her dropping for me. In 5th, I have Vince, who last week was 8th. He starts the week having switched his vote last minute. Both HOH outcomes were fine for him because he's playing both sides. Switching his vote helped to keep him off the block. Had he not switched, Mickey probably still ends up stealing the HOH, and this week is even worse for him. He keeps doing his regular thing, but he gets really paranoid this week about Rachel coming for him, realizing that he doesn't have social bonds with the other side of the house, and he tries to put some effort in, but it all comes across very obvious. Mickey considered him as a replacement, and he threw Jimmy right under the bus, a move that he was really lucky worked on Mickey. So he was safe. He still got strong bonds with the guys, Lauren, Morgan, but the Rachel side and even Mickey are coming directly for him next. So I want to put him higher based on him being one of the only competent players, but he still has half the house coming for him. In 4th, I have Morgan, who last week was 7th. I'm actually surprised how high up she ended up being. She pretty much is co-HOH this week, stewing, plotting, and planning with Mickey, and she could have had an easy week. No reason to stress, but she creates her own stress. The situation with Jimmy was completely unnecessary and avoidable, and Morgan was a big reason it happened. I will say that the Jimmy eviction is very beneficial for Morgan. It seems pretty clear to me that she really wants to go with Vince and Zach, which means she was overworking with him, and once she decided that, then Jimmy had to go. She felt Vince leaving this week was bad for the game, and it was, and she convinced Mickey to make decisions that were against Mickey's own best interest. I still have faith in her as a player, though she gets distracted and spends a lot of time talking about herself. It's too soon to say if this is confidence or hubris. I have her higher than Mickey this week, but I still think they could both be put on the block together, and if they do, I don't think Morgan would have the votes, though I have more confidence in Morgan as a competitor in general. In 3rd, I have Riley, who was 13th. Coming out of last week, Riley had just voted wrong, and he really needed this HOH. When he won it, he had his group's safety right in his clutches. Picking Ashley when everyone had been saying Mickey had the power for weeks was so silly, and he didn't seem to take the interrogation seriously enough, but whatever swagoo that he's dripping that we can't seem to see through the screen is working on the other house guests. They eat him up every time. Catherine is a loyal number for him, who seems down to just vote however he wants to. There was no serious conversation about voting him out, despite him being on the block and a huge threat in the game, and being on the block forced him to play a little bit more, which has been serving him well. I feel like he should be lower, but everyone below him are either potential targets or playing poorly. I don't think he's playing poorly. He's very well liked. Do I think he's playing well? No, but I don't think any of them are. He won the blockbuster, which even further will make people not want to mess with him. In 2nd, I have Lauren, who last week was 6th, coming out of that boring HOH week where she put herself first. Now I feel like she could look back and be happy with her decisions. Riley being HOH was good for her, but thanks to her not putting Ashley up last week, Mickey upheld the deal and kept Lauren safe. And as a viewer, after seeing disaster after disaster of HOHs, Lauren having that on her resume with without having her game crumble is sadly an achievement with this group. The biggest detractor for her right now is that she's seen as a follower of Zach and Vince by the other players and isn't respected as a game player. But if you listen to her talk on the feeds, the content is there. She knows what's going on. The final two with Vince was her idea. She's got stuff going on. And I don't think Lauren needs to do anything for weeks. She should just chill, heat it up in the end, bring Catherine to the final two, open a bridal shop. In first, for the second time, I have Zach, who last week was third. He's another player who I feel like would have been fine with either HOH, and that's saying something about his game. He even helped Mickey to get the HOH, hinting that she should basically use her power that he knew that she had because he's perceptive and in the know. He's locked in the game. He knows what's going on, and because everything's always been fine for him, we haven't seen him have to scramble, but we have seen him, even from week 1 with Ashley, warning people when they're in danger and getting away with it, scooping up trust from the others. Add on to that, he still has his power, the only power left in the game. The other players kind of see him as a threat, but they have no idea how big of a threat Zach is. So maybe he'll go on the block, but if he has to use his power, it would be something for his resume. So it's like, even if he loses, he wins. It must be amazing to be Zach. But that's all I have to say about this week. Let me know in the comments, what are your rankings? If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. We're in the countdown to 20K. So if you watch these videos and aren't subscribed, now is a good time. You can also connect with me on socials that I link in the description. Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye.